Welcome to With One Accord, the Houston Chamber Choir podcast. I'm Flynn, host of Behind the Music. Today's episode is made possible in part by the generous support of Silvercrest Asset Management Group, providing an unparalleled level of quality investment advice. This time, it's my great pleasure to welcome conductor and composer Benedict Sheehan, whose music will be performed by the Houston Chamber Choir. Benedict, welcome. Thank you very much for being here.
It's wonderful to be. It's wonderful to be here with you, and it's great to meet you.
And where are you in the world?
I'm based in northeastern Pennsylvania, so it's kind of up in the corner, in the right-hand corner of the state. If you're looking at a map of the state of Pennsylvania, if you're a fan of the Office, we're kind of in the Scranton area, not in Scranton, but just a little bit outside of it.
And you are the artistic director for the Saint Tikhon Choir.
Yes, that's right.
And the director of music at the Monastery and the Seminary. Talk a little bit about this institution.
Yeah, I'd be glad to. So I teach and work at well, before I answer that, just let me just remind the audience, or admit to the audience, that I do have a stutter when I talk. So it's not your your imagination. It's something I do deliberately to get attention, and so it seems to work well for me, so I continue to do it. No, but in reality, it just means it's been a thing that's been with me my whole life, and it just takes me a little more time to say things. So bear with me, and you don't have to pretend you don't have to pretend it doesn't exist. There's actually quite a lot of people in the world who stutter, and they I would say they tend to try to stay out of the spotlight. It's ironic that I've ended up having to talk to people in public for a living, but the way I deal with it is just to be open and not to let it stop me. So having said that, let me so Saint Tikhon's is the oldest Orthodox monastery in the United States, or in North America. It's part of the Eastern Orthodox Church, which is one of the ancient. It's one of the ancient Christian churches. It has a Slavic background, but and it was founded by Patriarch Tikhon, who became the Patriarch of Moscow. It was founded in 1905, and has been operating as a monastery continuously since 1905. So having at least two services a day for the last 117 years. So I came here to Saint Tikhon's in 2010 as the music director, and so I sing and conduct in services, and I run the choir rehearsals, or some of them, and I oversee now our music staff. So there's me and three others who are on the music staff, and I also teach at Saint Tikhon's Seminary, as you pointed out, which is a graduate school for the training of Orthodox priests. So there's about, at any given time, there's about 40 or 50 students and they all have to sing in some capacity. I think it's ironic that a lot of these young men who come and are trained to be priests and to learn theology and to learn the liturgy, and they don't realize that about 80% of their job is going to be singing in front of other people. So for some of them, it's a rather rude awakening. But they learn and they sing, and so they sing in a choir, they sing on their own. They have to be readers and to chant in the services. So I together with my wife oversee the training of these students.
The St. Tikhon Choir, though, is not just, or maybe not even, the seminarians. Is that correct?
That's right. It's not the seminarians. So yeah, in 2015, together with the abbot of the monastery, I created the Saint Tikhon Choir, which is a professional ensemble, and it draws on pro musicians from all over the country. We're only about 2.5 hours from New York, and so we actually draw quite a bit from the New York music scene. And then some of the people that sing are very talented students who either get invited to sing or get brought back, after they graduate to sing on a specific project. So I would say maybe about a third of the group at this point comes from within the Saint Tikhon's community. So either a student or two, and a few alumni, and then some members of our music staff, a couple of, a few people from the community at large, and then the broader choral music scene. So, but we have a core ensemble that sings regularly at the monastery. So maybe 20% of the group is actually people in the local community that are on staff or that sing here in church.
I know that congratulations are in order because you were Grammy nominated in 2022 for the best choral performance for a recording of your own work. You sit on the poster behind you, the Liturgy of St. John Chrysostom.
Yeah, thank you. We were really very thrilled to get that. That piece is a setting of the Orthodox Divine Liturgy. It's set in English because that's what we do. All the services that Saint Tikhon's are in English, and my background in the Orthodox Church is mainly just in English-speaking communities. And it was commissioned in 2015 or 16 by an entity called the Petrama Institute, who is working at trying, to build up the musical tradition of American Orthodoxy. So they commissioned this new piece from me, and we recorded it in 2019 with the Saint Tikhon Choir. It came out in the fall of 2020 and got nominated for a Grammy just this past fall. We didn't we didn't get the Grammy, unfortunately. I was just at the awards about three weeks ago. So we lost out to the LA Philharmonic, who made a fabulous recording of Mahler 8. But it was an honor just to be able to be there and to be to be recognized in that way.
And it must have been strange for somebody of your background to suddenly be in the bright lights of Los Angeles and Hollywood.
Yeah, it was interesting to be on the red carpet for sure. I found ended up in a couple Instagram videos by celebrities, and not like they don't know me from Adam, but but I saw myself in the background, and yeah, I mean, it was it's not kind of what it's not the goal of it's hard to make the Grammys be a goal. It's more like an outcome, because for you probably being connected with the Houston Chamber Choir are well aware of this. It's in Grammy is a thing for like you did 2 years ago or 3 years ago. You've long since moved on. But it's certainly it's great to be recognized in that way. It's great to see the choral music of the tradition that I'm working in and trying to build up in some regard, to have that be in the spotlight in that way. I think in some ways it speaks to the fact that this music resonates with people, and it's music that is in some way grounded in a context and in a tradition, but it's a very but it's also an open door for everybody. For everybody. I'd like to see more of that, and it's great to see this, see Orthodox music by others and performed by others being on that stage also. I mean, like maybe there's quite a few of the Grammy nominees or Grammy winners of the past 10 years that have had some. It's either music from the Orthodox repertoire or in some way connected with that musical context.
Did you grow up in the Orthodox tradition?
I'm like so there's kind of this split in the Orthodox Church between between the so-called cradle Orthodox and converts. And I can't take credit for the term, but a friend of mine said at one time, you use the term bunk bed Orthodox. So I'm bunk bed Orthodox in the sense that my parents converted when I was when I was a kid. So I was, I think, 5 when my family became Orthodox. So from that point on, I more or less grew up in it. Although I still can remember a time where that was not what we did. But yeah, for the most part, I did.
I'm making an assumption here, and forgive me, but with a last name like Sheehan, I would imagine that the family might have been Catholic.
Yeah, my dad was absolutely Irish. Was Irish Catholic. I think, I mean, not a practicing Catholic as an adult, but he came to Orthodoxy as an adult in his in his 40s, and then brought my mom and me along with him.
With regard to yourself as a musician, which came first, the composing or the conducting?
That's interesting. I mean, certainly the composing. I kind of came to music a little late in life for someone who was going to do it as a career. I mean, not that late. I was about 13 when I really started to study.
That's late.
But it's late compared to a lot of instrumentalists who, like, they start at 3 and 4, and like I didn't really have any formal musical training in my early childhood. So it meant that, like, certain things that I like a lot of my musician colleagues will do intuitively, I don't do intuitively. Like I kind of have figured out back doors, or what I now realize are back doors to things that are completely obvious to others. So for me, the act of doing music is deeply tied to notation, to a score. So right from the start, when I started to really learn music and study it, I was also I just started composing. I was like, oh, I now know what a quarter note is, and I now know what G major is. I'm gonna write quarter notes in G, and so I just started to compose basically at the same time, and the conducting, it didn't take very long for me to start. It came a few years after. I actually became a church choir director in our church, our small town church in New Hampshire, which is where I grew up. I started being a choir director there at age 15, partly because the main director at the church, he died suddenly, and there were not a lot of others in the choir who actually had studied music, and I was motivated and interested, so I actually got asked by the church to with one other young man to help out being the choir director, and so I started at that point, and I've been basically a church choir director since then, in some regard. So it's quite a long time at this point. But yeah, the composing came first, and in some ways it's a key, like kind of a core part of how I just think about music and how I understand it. Like I'll hear, listen to a recording, and I'll immediately want to see the score to see how it was done, if it's a thing I don't know exactly how it was done, and then I'll read it, and then I'll figure out some way to incorporate it into the next thing I do.
So is it fair to say that your composing is an outgrowth of your Orthodox faith?
I think in some ways it's fair to say that, although it might be the other way around. I my really keen interest in music as a young teenager came from a recording of Orthodox music that my grandmother had sent me. I don't know why she sent me it. I wasn't really interested in music at the time, and I can't even say I was particularly interested in orthodoxy. I mean, I was 13. What 13-year-old is that interested in church? I mean, I know some that are, but I now, but that wasn't me. And but I really fell in love with this recording, and I started to, I just listened to it over and over, and it was that really sparked my interest in the church in some regard, like as something that I decided that belonged to me in some way, rather than belonging to my mom, and dad, to my mom and dad. Um, so it was really the discovery and falling in love with the music of the Orthodox Church, and then from there with music in general, that really kind of sparked my interest to go deeper into the Orthodox tradition, and into Orthodox faith generally. And I think it continues to serve as that for me. My entry point into faith is actually through music, rather than the other way around.
But not everything you write, everything you compose is necessarily liturgical, is it?
No, right. Well, as I say, it was the interest in Orthodox music that kind of sparked my interest in music generally. So, I mean, I've written art songs, I've written chamber music, and but the bulk of what I have composed, it has been choral music. I really have had a deep and abiding love for choral music, from that point. And I do love the fact that worship still provides a rich context for the understanding of and appreciation of music. I mean, there's a lot of choral music out there, but a lot of it is religious in some regard.
Mm-hmm.
And I think part of it is that worship and church, they give us a reason to be together,
Mm.
and a reason to all pay and to all pay attention to the same thing at the same time, um, and to not just do it passively, but to do it in some active way as participants. And that's what choral music it is.
Mm-hmm.
I so even when I'm writing music that's not for a religious context, I still feel that in some way it's a sacred act. It's a sacred thing that and I think choral music in particular is embodies that sacred reality of people really trying to come together and to unite with one another in a way that creates something beautiful, something as beautiful as music. So I do think I bring that spirit of worship even to a thing that it hasn't got anything to do with worship per se.
Let's talk about Once Upon a Time, which is a work of yours that the Houston Chamber Choir is performing. This is a work that is based around two fairy tales. Can you elaborate on how this all fits together? What the forces, the intimate, the musical forces are, and the texts.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, Once Upon a Time was a really interesting project, and I kind of came into it a little farther down the road than I would have normally. Um, so it started out that I met the conductor Matthew Gard, who is the conductor of Skylark, who premiered and recorded this. We met in June of 2018, I think, and we really, we very quickly became friends, and we batted around some ideas of how we might collaborate. And as it turned out, Matthew, together with a wonderful storyteller, Sarah Walker, had created a program of choral music based on these two fairy tales, Snow White and the Little Mermaid, in the form that they are now in the piece, as retold by Sarah. Matthew was trying. He's always trying, in a sense, to solve the problem of the fact that choral concerts are very often just kind of boring. Like, you just sit and they sing at you for an hour, and then you walk away. You're not sure what you should do. You're not sure, like, what you're supposed to be paying attention to. Like, am I supposed to watch the people who are singing? Am I supposed to watch the conductor? Am I supposed to close my eyes? Why does this one piece come after the next one? Is it because it's part of a bigger work, or is it just because it's music that that the conductor thinks is interesting, and then just they have them one after to the other? So Matthew's, he's always trying to creatively solve this. And so one of the ways that he'd come up with to solve it, he's not the only one who did this, but was to basically to put choral music into some kind of a narrative, so that we have this, so you have the narrative, and then the narrative is punctuated at certain points by a piece of music that in some way it comments on the narrative, or it drives this storyline along, or kind of a Greek chorus concept, let's say. So together with Sarah Walker, they created this program. And it was so there would be there's a piece of music, and then and then the narrator reads part of the story, and then there's another piece of music that is in some way tied in. But what he wanted to do was to make it more unified and have some sense that the whole thing is like a single dramatic arc. So he had told me about this, and I said, well, here, look, what you need is a composer to kind of stitch all these pieces to get together, and to write underscoring under the narrative, so that everything in the program just kind of flows and seems as if it was all like they have to go in that order, and they're all part of a single big dramatic arc. So he's like, well, all right, this is what we're going to do. And so that's what I composed. Is I composed composed these kind of the interstitial parts that go under the narrative. But in order to do that, I had to pull from the music before it and the music that comes after, and make them seem like they just kind of just gradually meld from one into the other, but at the same time, to kind of underscore the drama of the narrator or reflect on it, and like so it kind of acts like a like a like this like a like a like a like a film score where the narrative is being amplified by music in some regard. And so I drew thematic elements from the first piece on the program, which is the first piece from the full-length Soir de Neige, and I drew motifs from that and turned them into leitmotifs for the characters or the objects in the story, and then I combined them with the music that comes after, so that when you arrive at the next piece, which I think in the Snow White story is I think it's that piece called the Scream, or no, I forget what it's called. But anyway, it starts with that kind of scream that just goes up chromatically, and it's very scary. So I kind of work these things in so that they all seem like they're all part of one thing. And as far as we can tell, it's something that hadn't ever been done before, quite in the way we did it. So we invented a word, which is a story score, to describe what this is. But I kind of started out with a lot of constraints that were kind of like things that were already set in stone. Like it had to be these particular pieces of music by other composers. It had to be a very specific length, because it had to be only as long as the narrative that had been set to go between these. And it had to start in the key that they ended in, and end in the key that the next piece starts in. So there's a lot of kind of there were a lot of as I said, a lot of constraints. So it was a very strange and interesting and really fun project to do as a composer. But I would not be honest if I said that it were really a piece by me. So it's not. It's certainly it is in part a piece by me, but I'm working with material from other composers, and with a basic concept that was already laid out and in some way realized by Matthew and by Matthew I'm dealing with a project that was in some way already realized and conceived by Matthew and Sarah.
Makes you appreciate how good John Williams is when Steven Spielberg comes along and says, "I need music."
Yeah, to fit like
exactly take up this much time.
Yeah, it's true. Also, it's something I hadn't ever tried to do before. So I learned a lot, and I'm really so all that said, I'm very pleased with how it ended up, and the and the review and the reviews that we got were all like, the reviewers were really interested in, like, in this kind of strange in this kind of strange format that we had created, and a lot of them commented on how it seemed like everything was just belonged there. It seemed like this just continuous, seamless concept, but it was anything but seamless to begin with. So, so the and we felt that the thing was so successful that Galark then commissioned me to do another one. But this time I'd get to write all the music. So yeah, so that in some ways made it a lot easier. But it was so that they recorded and that last August, and it was released in November. It's called a Christmas Carol, and it is a story score of the Dickens story. I'm very pleased with that one also.
I can't let you go without having you talk about your family, because obviously, your family is special to you, but it's quite a unique family in the sense that your wife Talia is also a musician, and you have 7 daughters.
That's right. Yep, I sure do. Yeah, and they were actually all at home for Easter. Just now. So yeah, I do. So they range in age from almost 21 to 5. And our eldest is a musician. She's a musician now. Also, she's in music school. She's a wonderful soprano, and I hope will be a conductor. She's already shown quite a lot of talent in that. And they all have to sing, every single one of them. We kind of so some people say, like, we made a girls basketball team, but it's really a choir. Like they actually sing, and they can sing in 4 parts, and they sound pretty good. And so I've actually done performances with only us, with my girls and my wife and me, and it's really a blast. It's a fun thing that we do. So yeah, they're a huge part of my life, obviously. Mm-hmm. And I joke that that I mean, some people say that it must be a lot of work, and absolutely it's a lot of work, but at this point we can make them do a lot of the work around the house. So I'm actually pretty spoiled at this point. Like, we have built-in babysitters, and so my wife and I can walk out the door and get on an airplane and go out and do something, and do a project, or give a workshop, or just go out for dinner, and they kind of do they do better in some regards when we're not around, because they don't have anybody to complain to, so they can actually solve their own problems. But I'm very proud of them, and it's really a fun time. We have a kind of crazy home, but it's a lot of fun.
And what is your wife's musical expression?
She's a wonderful singer. She's sung on all the recordings that I've done, and she has a voice studio with like 25 students. And she also does gigs from time to time, and she is also a really great pianist. So her background in conservatory was actually voice and piano. We met as undergrads at Westminster Choir College, and we started dating. I think 2 weeks after I got there, and so we've basically our musical careers have just we've grown side by side, and we do workshops together. She does the more music ed, vocal education part of it, and I do the conducting and the composing, and but she is also my biggest critic. So every time I write a new piece, or like write even a few bars of a new piece, I'll bring it to her, and she'll let me know if it's great or if I need to start over. So it's great. I've got a built-in kind of I've got a built-in audience and music critic.
So you have no problem with bringing work home with you?
No, I don't. Yeah, I mean, I need to. So everything I put out in the world has been approved by Dahlia. Because if it hadn't been approved by her, it would never see the light of day.
Benedict, it's been wonderful to talk to you, and thank you very much for sharing your professional life and your home life with us. And best wishes, and we look forward to Once Upon a Time here in Houston. Benedict, thank you very much.
I'm so glad that you all are going to be a part of this, be a part of this story of that piece, and I can't wait to find out how it goes and what you all thought of it. And I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you, Stangen, and it's great to get to know you a bit.
And we hope that everybody lives happily ever after. Benedict, thank you very much. Thank you to all who support the Houston Chamber Choir, our season underwriter, Silvercrest Asset Management Group, our patrons, donors, and subscribers. We appreciate all you do to help keep the work of the Houston Chamber Choir possible. I'm St. John Flynn, and this is Behind the Music. Join us again next time.
The Houston Chamber Choirs with One Accord is your one-stop shop for choral joy. If you enjoyed this podcast, help us to continue our mission to grow the esteem and appreciation of choral music by sharing, reviewing, and subscribing to our content. As a 501c3 nonprofit, support from listeners like you allows us to continue to create new and exciting programming. For more information about us and how you can support our work, please visit HoustonChamberChoir.org/give.